first of all, the unitization bill that passed the House of Representatives this session, to look into its importance and the effect that it would have had as being a possible answer to the energy crisis. Secondly, I asked the committee to look into coastal states' gas curtailment of fuel supplies to cities and industrial users, and also the regulatory powers of the Texas Railroad Commission with regard to setting priorities. The other two areas were those of nuclear power and setting of agricultural use of energy as a high priority when we come to rationing.
As of January 2 of 1974, the law says that these districts shall be elections that were required under the runoff. And then, of course, on May 8, 1974, the Board of Elections.
The board president has requested
at the next meeting, and give Mr. Hahn and Mr. Hickman, I think it's unfair, just ask them to discuss.
The next item, Mr. President, relates to a report.
Some owners of cafes and bars feel that they've been left in the clutches of the vending machine companies. They almost got some relief from the last legislature, but a new regulation bill got lost in the last-minute rush. Under present law, the owner of an establishment cannot own his own machine, whether it's pinball machines like these, or a jukebox, or pool table, or any other amusement device. This gives the vending machine companies a stranglehold by which they not only can control how many and which machines, but also sometimes other aspects of the business. Present law also puts a few vending machine company owners in charge regulating all others through a state commission. District Attorney Henry Wade and other law enforcement people say that some major vending companies are extensions of crime syndicates who now have the law on their side.
There's many people that would rather have no regulation at all than have the regulation taking place with the major vending companies in control. There are many people that feel that having them in control is nothing more than having organized crime in control of a major vending and a major working commission of the state government.
We've got two divers working at Pruitt Circle.
It looks like it'll be about a month before you can buy a ticket here at this red, white, and blue trailer at the west end of the track tunnel at Dallas's Union Station. Workers are trying to get the trailer in shape to sell tickets for the first Amtrak train, which is theoretically due through here Sunday, and they're hoping for a horde of passenger train passengers. But that may be a bit premature, because it's not until tomorrow that the official word, yes or no, will come on passenger train service here. That's when a special committee meets in Washington to decide whether or not the Southern Pacific Railroad can keep Amtrak off its rails between here and Houston. In the meantime, at least, this end of the track tunnel is fixed up and painted up and ready for passengers. Until then, it looks like you'll have to go to Fort Worth at the Amtrak ticket agency there to get your tickets, or maybe when the train comes through you can buy your ticket from the conductor just like you used to be able to. Keep your fingers crossed, rail fans. This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Dallas Union Terminal.
Especially at issue recently has been COG's right to evaluate programs before federal money will be allotted to local governments. That right or program is perhaps to be expanded under the title Metropolitan Area-Wide Review and Comment, commonly known as MARC. Outgoing COG Chairman Dan Matkin of Irving defended the MARC program.
As you're aware, COG is currently exercising a review and comment responsibility under state and federal law for approximately 100 different federal programs funded within our 16 regional clearinghouse area. This has been an effective means, perhaps the best COG has had available, to help implement area-wide plans and programs. The process has always been and always will be under the direct control of local elected officials.
During the next session of the legislature and enact a new law that will take and do away with some of the problems, or if we should have a special session, we could enact a new law that would bring about the reform that the House of Representatives attempted to bring about this time.
The State Attorney General is investigating some vending machine companies, but they're looking for specific criminal violations and would not have any effect on the overall regulation problem. The present law has been ruled unconstitutional, but it's left in effect pending appeals, which could take several years. So apparently it's going to be up to the legislature, and that means that whatever the problems we have now, they're going to be with us a couple of more years. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Until the legislature got together this session and approved a bill requiring school districts to offer classroom instruction to all 5-year-olds, the Dallas School District had made plans to extend its educational program to children who would be 5 years, 7 months old in September. These age kids would be put into multi-age classes with 6-year-old children as seen in this film. Now the problem is how to fund the early childhood program. It will cost the district about $3 million to put all 5- and 6-year-olds in full-day classes for a full school year. I talked with Mrs. Frances Allen, the new Assistant Superintendent for Early Childhood Education, about these financial problems. With the addition of 6,000 5-year-olds in the early childhood program, plus the additional cost of $1.5 million, the district may have to levy a tax increase to accommodate these children. But all that depends on whether or not the governor signs the bill into law, and the administration thinks it's likely he will. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is June Gray at the School Administration Building.
They're in real good physical condition, Jerry. We've been real fortunate all year. That's one thing that's been an attribute in our favor. We haven't had any injuries, a little measles and poison ivy, but that's about it. Mentally, of course, we're thrilled to death about going to Austin, and our kids are real excited about it. We rooted real hard for Bob Rombach and Kimball Knights, but the fellow from Westchester had a little something to do with it, and so we're going to do our best to bring the state championship back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and our kids are excited about it.
You've had a lot of rain recently and probably not as much time to practice as you would like. Has this rain really hurt you that much?
Hard to say. I hope not. We had a practice this morning because we are playing at 10 o'clock Thursday, and so we wanted to kind of get acclimated to that time of day, and of course the weather rained us out, and it's bothered us a little bit, I think.
You drew Brenham in the first round. What do you know about Brenham?
I haven't seen him play, Jerry. All I know is I've talked with some coaches that have played him, and Brenham's been down there 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years, so they're a real good baseball team. They're a lot like us. They only have 3 seniors, and they play good, sound defensive ball, and from what I understand, they're real good hitters. Got one strong pitcher, too.
Sure, it creates a problem. You can't stand back and box the guy. You have to go after him. You know, you have to get inside. And if you stand back, you're not going to get inside, so you have to go to him.
If you were to describe what kind of a fighter James Helwig was, are you a boxer, a fighter, a brawler, or what?
Well, I think it just kind of depends on the opponent I'm fighting. This fight, I'm going to have to be more or less a brawler. You know, last fight, I think I boxed a little bit with Sonny there, you know, and because I was able to. But this guy's too tall. I'm not going to be able to stand back and pick my shots on him.
He's got a record of 16 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw, and you are yet to be beaten in the professional ranks. Does this have any bearing on your mental attitude, knowing that he's been beaten that you haven't?
Well, I think once you've been beaten, it's a little easier to go down the second time, maybe.
The point of the controversy is to rehire 3 black counselors who have a combined total of 9 years' experience in the Neighborhood Youth Corps. These 3 will be replaced by 15 youth advisors provided by the Dallas Independent School District. The Children's Television Workshop employs about 12 of these students who participate in the Neighborhood Youth Corps program. Renee Martinez says these 15 are going to do an adequate job, but they're going to need help.
They do not have the expertise in manpower placement, job placement. They don't have the rapport with the children that the other three counselors had. They don't have the continuity that those three individuals had during the summer months. And in fact, they're not going to be having the supervision that those three counselors had with the students.
Expertise and continuity is the rallying cry used by those who would like to see the three counselors rehired. To rehire them, it would cost the city $6,000 for 11 weeks' work. The program is scheduled to begin on June 15th, but indications are that between now and then, the issue is going to be pressed. I'm Rene Castillo reporting for Channel 8 News on the Move.
It wasn't a riot or anything like that brought these 448 Dallas police patrolmen to Memorial Auditorium. It was ambition that brought them here. The men had gathered to take their civil service exams to reach the rank of sergeant. Now, only a few positions are open, about 23, they tell me. There's a money incentive here, too. The raise from patrolman to sergeant is about 15%, or something like $200 a month, which isn't a bad raise. One of the patrolmen about to sweat over the test this morning was Jeff House, who told me he was just a little bit nervous over the whole thing.
I've taken the test one time before.
Well, is it pretty rough?
It's one of the hardest tests I've ever taken.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you kind of nervous about taking it?
Yes, I'm a little bit on edge. I'm not extremely nervous, but not totally relaxed either.
Well, Jeff and the others won't find out how they did until sometime tomorrow. So if you run into a patrolman who's just a little bit on edge during the next few hours, you might wish him luck on his sergeant's exam. Well, for News 8 on the Move, this is Arch Campbell.
Well, basically, I think that the image of the funeral director is good in those instances in which a person has experienced a death, and the person who has experienced the death realizes that which the funeral director has done most times in union with a clergyman for those who have survived the death.
Was produced in a very short period of time since these municipal elections to the food rating and I don't hear applause. We have the Mayor Pro Tem of Fort Worth, Ted Beaton, are members of our Council of Government. It's our understanding that our work to accomplish in the future will carry out our basic objectives. With the cooperation of all the public bodies in our Central Texas, this can be done.
And it means that all 5-year-olds, 5 on or before September the 1st, will be eligible to attend.
It's going to be an extra $1.5 million, so your program is going to be what? About
7 square.
You should have 2 pencils, an examination, and an answer sheet.
We didn't when we first came in. That was about 10 till 10. No.
Pretty big raise if you get promoted to sergeant, right?
I think probably a week until it's actually graded.
And I guess you can take this quiz here. And how was it going to?
Chart.
And counsel. And
Are you a funeral director also?
No, I'm not. I'm a.
What did you discuss today? Was it kind of the legal aspects of planning to do?
I don't know what to ask because she's so concerned so much right now.
You know, and I figure the other 2 will help me. Anything. He's never asked me about my child. Of course, I haven't paid any rent since then, but they haven't asked for it. But in the picture, want to smile, Sabrina?
How much longer is she going to be here?
Of course, my 5-year-old will start school in September.
How did she get out of there? 4 months ago, 2-year-old Sabrina Borders was a happy, active little girl. On March 7, she stumbled into an unguarded, unfenced pool outside her apartment home. Doctors pronounced her dead on arrival at Baylor Hospital. Even after doctors brought little Sabrina back to consciousness, her mother was told there was no hope and to make funeral arrangements. Sabrina is alive, but her near-fatal accident has left her with massive brain damage.
After she was in here about 2 weeks, one doctor had told me that they had made a mistake by bringing her back, surviving her, said that there was just no hope, said it was just a massive brain damage, and that it was just a matter of time. 4 weeks ago, she opened her eyes, and each day she seems to be doing a little more, but we don't know how much she'll be able to do.
Mrs. Borders told me the doctors wanted her to put Sabrina in a nursing home because she has 2 other children at home to care for. She refused. In many ways, Sabrina is very lucky. She's improved when there was no hope. Her face is bright and happy. She has a family who loves her, and most of all, she has her life. June Gray, Channel 8 News on the Move at Baylor Hospital.
If the Pentagon's action sticks, the finishing touches will be put on a plane just like this one sometime in December of 1974 and will close another chapter of American military aviation history. The question which follows is, will the closing pages crunch the 4,000 plus people who build the F-111? The initial plans were to build more than 1,700 of these super sophisticated jets at a cost of less than $3.5 million each. As it turned out, they're costing between $14 and $15 million each, and the total number will apparently be only 543. In typical, cautiously optimistic fashion, the official company statement says the Pentagon's action is flabbergasting and that surely a review of the decision will result in more orders for the F-111. But, just in case, GD has joined Boeing in a bid for government contracts totaling $1 billion to build external fuel tanks for the Space Shuttle program. Word on that should be coming in August. There's also hope for the FY-16, GD's experimental lightweight jet fighter plane. They have contracts to build 2 models, but nothing you could count on to feed 4,000 families.
The people in Washington who were reading the newspapers knew more about what their government was doing, apparently, than the president. Because if we believe him, he didn't know. But if he didn't know, it wasn't because he wasn't reading the newspapers. In fact, he said on the eve of his inauguration this year, in a famous interview with the Associated Press's great reporter Saul Pett, he made it perfectly clear, not once but twice, that he insulates himself from television news and newspapers, and 4 times he insisted that he never reads columnists or watches commentators.
Moyer's comments concluded on an optimistic note, as he said that while there are enough reporters to keep up a good fight, America has a hope of getting right again. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move at UTA in Arlington.
Batting second, the left fielder.
that we wish you'd ask for only if you have to use public transportation, and this is in the downtown.
Young. Are you serious about what you're doing, or are you just on a summer lark?
Well, at first it started off to be a summer lark, but now I think it's more serious because since we've been in our training session, we've learned so many things about the organization of the city government and things like that that's made it become more important. It's not just a summer job to me now.
Conference later on today, and I'm sure there.
But I think it would be helpful if I gave you a little bit of the background of.
And welcome you to our state. And from the state of Texas, this is Alicia Khan from.
Do so well in 1968. I think we ought to in 1968. And as for me, I'll take that.
No, I couldn't get in every time I went over there to see another cop.
Strengthen the 1972 reforms and to expand.
And we do have a national party when we come together to elect a president.
Representatives of the Texas Democratic.
But I guess we could begin with discussing the importance of immunization, which breakthrough in some of the problems that and
to recruit volunteers, right?
Yeah.
About the voluntary action people? Yeah.
Things like that. Then the publicity has died.
What it has been. I think in 1968, for example.
Oh, that's good.
Wow. With his back?
Yeah. Hey, we get TV.
Go round and around with your hands going behind and your chin scraping the ground.
20 minutes ago.
Things are going well?
I'll show you a picture in a minute.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
This is for real.
Yes.
Round with your hands slowly behind and your chin scraping the ground.
She'll take you out further. 20 minutes ago, I was free like a breeze, free like a bird in the woods.
Presentation committee and some officers and present
that I appear before you today.
a National Register program for Texas.
For apartments and for office purposes. It's easy to go.
And some structure like that, an English blue kind of style, next please. And also Next block to that, we found that on Bryan Parkway.
Their job is going to be to visit the business premises in the city, indicate the location, size of the existing signs on those properties.
Now, most of these people appear to be quite young.
Yes, we had a requirement when we went out to employ these people that they have 1 year of college. They range in age from 18 years to 33.
I think that is a key game for us, you know, because if we beat them, we would be 3-4 points ahead, and we have one game less than St. Louis, you know, which is an excellent position for us, you know. But St. Louis is a hard team, you know. All the time we had a problem with them, you know.
Ilya, you played in Atlanta, a 0-0 tie.
Yeah.
You got 3 goals in Miami, 4 against Atlanta here. All of a sudden, the goals really seem to be coming. Is the offense that much improved?
I think all the team played much better than before, you know. In the first 2-3 games, we just didn't try to play. We just kicked the ball. Everyone was high, and really it's difficult to play. But when we put the ball on the ground, you know, and try to make some combinations, you know, some passes left and the right, you know, just we made it, because we are a really good team, you know.
Are you confident, like many others are, that you can win it all this year?
Sure, I'm sure we'll win.
Most attention here at the Democrat Charter Commission meeting has centered on the McGovern reform rules, which put many minority members in the place of longtime Democratic faithful members at the 1972 convention. Many of those testifying would like those minority guarantees written into a party charter. Others don't. Dallas County Democratic Chairman Earl Luna wants to change the entire idea of the convention. Here's some samples of the testimony.
We have that chance for the 1974 conference. If that conference is not held, I can assure you there would be a lawsuit filed immediately, because it is a mandate. We shouldn't be locked in a cage any longer. That convention should not have one delegate from each congressional district as has been proposed, but should have as many delegates as attended the national convention, so that we do have a broad base of all kinds of people helping to make those decisions.
My feeling is that we'll make no strong move toward having quotas in this charter.
But some people are still not going to allow them representation unless they're forced to, are they?
Well, that's a cynical point of view.
Isn't it more practical?
No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think it's just the opposite. I think now Democratic Party people, leaders, and others are aware of the fact that by including more groups and more people, you strengthen the party at the polls, and that's the object of a party, is to win elections.
I therefore recommend that the Democratic Party ensure a grassroots vote in the nominating process by requiring a national presidential and vice presidential primary to be held on the same day all over the United States, to let the Democrats do their own voting, while leaving the other party to make its selection by proxy in smoke-filled rooms.
Dr. M.E. Bradford, a major Dallas Democratic Wallace supporter, says there shouldn't even be a charter or a charter commission such as this to lock in certain positions. An undercurrent throughout the testimony here have been references to Watergate and obvious attempts to try to blame the Democrats' defeat in 1972 on Republican sabotage rather than on McGovern or the Democrat Party. Whether Watergate's going to be a factor in the final outcome of this commission's work remains to be seen, but that won't be until 1974. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move.
The problems are that mainly with high immunity levels, and low disease morbidity, that public awareness begins to wane. If you don't have disease occurring in the community, people aren't aware that there's a need to continue efforts.
So what happens after that?
Well, if people don't continue their efforts, then disease is going to start rising up again. There's going to be more measles morbidity, more kids are going to get sick, and immunity levels are going to fall.
The pace at the State Fair Music Hall is gaining speed these days. Scenery is raised and lowered, placed and replaced. Electricians have been called in to electriciate and hook up and do all those other nitty-gritty things that happen before the show can go on. Well, all of these new seats in the old State Fair Music Hall are empty now, but I understand they'll be pretty much filled up this Tuesday night when Oklahoma opens the 1973 summer musical season. While the electricians and carpenters are doing their thing on stage, rehearsals go on and on and on in the back rooms just off stage. Here the male chorus gets its workout, much like young athletes during training. Another room full of activity is the room Vivian Fouché calls home. Vivian's the wardrobe mistress for summer musicals. Back in 1925, when the music hall was really new, Vivian was called in to sell tickets. And then somebody needed some help with costumes. And so Vivian's been sewing and stitching and fitting ever since. So, how does it feel to clothe the great and the near great? Well, Vivian tells me it's all in a day's work.
Well, you see a lot of strange things, but you've got to be ready for anything. And I guess the funniest thing that ever happened, I had to give one of them my petticoat one day off the... One of them forgot her slip, and I...
Was this during a performance?
Yes, and I had to take my petticoat off and give it to one of them.
Does that sort of thing happen pretty often?
Well, yeah, a lot of times things like that happen. One of the fastest things that we had was on The Sound of Music when we had the children in the show. And you had to have so many people for so many children when they had this change. And when everybody's out there on the stage at the same time, the dressers had to be ready to take their things right out and know who their children were to make that change.
Did anybody ever put the wrong costume on the wrong...
the wrong dress on the wrong child.
This summer, Vivian will be working with the likes of Herschel Bernardi, John Davidson, and Carol Channing in the 7 shows over the summer season. But for now, all she's thinking about is that fast-approaching production of Oklahoma. And while Vivian stitches and sews, the male chorus continues its workout, ironing out those bugs and kinks that can't be there when the curtain rises this Tuesday night. Well, for Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Arch Campbell at the State Fair Music Hall.
That's